Whoa, whoa. Wait. What was that?
I've just set up a challenge, which I'm just about to post on. So this was the first one. I mean, this is, when typographers do text, they set it in this.
Lorem, Ipsum, yeah.
Yeah. So they just set it so that you can see how the letters work and the speed. So I did a post last week with this saying, right, so you do a post using the same text, because the great thing about Lorem Ipsum is you don't know what it says. So you're not investing time in the meaning. When you're writing a poem out, you can sometimes get involved in the poem.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I love this word, and you're reading it, and that's not the point of this. The point of this is for you to sit down, write some text that you really don't know. Because if you're writing text you don't know, you can't guess the spelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Concentrating on the spelling. Let me grab my glasses. and I wrote it out really simply, no flourishes, really plain. And I said to people, okay, so you want to get better? Write this out. And people were like, what? And don't just write it out, and of course this is very unlike a challenge. Write it out and tell me what you did. So people wrote it out and they were like, oh, I wrote with this nib, I wrote at this height, couldn't get it to work, I struggled with, and people have been posting like a lot of text. So I go in and I comment and I said, right, so the problems you're having is this, look at this. So people have been really excited about it. It's, yes, it's a challenge, but it's also a challenge for you to take the time to write it up, because I have to take my time to answer you. So tell me what you're up to. So in the PA Scribe calligraphy classes group, I wanted to set one up for pointed pen and one for broad edge nib. And so this is the broad edge nib one, the Textualis quadrata one.
Looks nice. Is this the whole text?
Lorem Ipsum is like a full A4 page of text at 0.10. It's full. This is part of the first paragraph.
Okay. I just know about Lorem Ipsum that there are basically all the letters, and that's it. That's what I know about it. Other than it's just some random stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's all the letters if you have all the text.
Okay.
But the text is normally at about 0.12. So you have a full page of it, but obviously, when you're writing at like 0.64.
Hi everyone, welcome back. Oh my god. Hi everyone, welcome back to Nibs, the podcast. I'm your host, Milanist.
And I'm your host, Paul Antonio. And this is where we discuss
everything about calligraphy, lettering, and sign painting. In last week's episode, we discussed a few things, but there was one topic which we left unfinished. What topic was this, Paul?
So I think it was the turning your passion into a hobby.
Yes, we have a few more things. Paul has some few more things to say about it. And then in today's episode, we'll be speaking also about how many scripts are there. And the topic which just came up now, and I think it's important to talk about it. It's because how people communicate with us on Instagram, online in general. Because a lot of people, first, they don't appreciate our time. Second, sometimes they think we're rude, and sometimes we might be, but we'll speak also about stuff like this because I think it's important. And yeah, which topic?
So let's get back to this turning your hobby into a profession.
Yeah.
So I made some notes after last week, just to sort of refresh my mind. So some of the things are, for instance, we talked about, if you're changing your hobby into a profession, get another hobby, because if you take away the thing that you need to relax with and you turn it into work, you're going to be very stressed. So there are other things around this, just go back to the previous episode and sort of catch up on that first and then sort of continue from there. So some of the other things. One of the really frustrating things about changing your hobby into your profession is you have to up your game, because you're not just doing this for yourself anymore, you're doing this for clients. So you have to have a standard of work that your clients are happy with and that they agree to purchase before you do the work for them. Make sure you send them a scan of something that you've done before so that they know what the level of the craft is going to be. Also, don't slip up. You send them your best work and you write out something for them that's not your best work, and they get angry that you've not done what you've said you would do, you have a problem. So make sure that you're sending out work that you're A, comfortable with, and B, competent and comfortable enough with to be able to replicate it constantly. Otherwise, you will run into problems with clients.
Okay, we had such experiences where, I mean, I don't think you've had, but I'm just asking for direct.
But I have had other calligraphers sort of get into trouble with other people, and I've had clients come to me saying, "Oh, I went to this person and I had some envelopes addressed, and this is what they did." And I looked at it, I went, "You paid for this? Wow." And they said, "Well, I didn't expect it to be this bad." And I said, "Well, go back to them and get them to redo it." And they were like, "No, I just want you to do it."
While I was listening you now speaking about this stuff, something came up to my mind, and I think it's similar to the workshop thing we've discussed. Some people are not ready to teach, but just for the sake of money they start teaching. And I was thinking, a lot of people, there's a lot of people which don't have money, they love calligraphy, and I see a lot of people, they want to make money out of it. Is there something that we can recommend them? What's a good point in the time that they can start making money out of it? Because
the thing about making this is an interesting topic, because making money out of it, we talked about this in the previous episode. Don't do work that you are not happy giving to a customer. If you look at the work and you can see problems with it, don't give it to the customer, because that work will come back to bite you in 10 years' time. And don't forget, in 10 years' time, you'll be a lot better. So if you're seeing problems with the work now, imagine in 10 years' time what you will see with the work. So if you give that client that work and the client's unhappy with it, it means that your level of expectation of your own work is too high. You need to work harder at that. And so this brings me to the next topic. When you're doing the next aspect of this topic, when you're doing professional work, you need a core of people around you to reference, to help, like mentors. There are tons of calligraphers out there who produce excellent work. You can contact them and say, I just need a little bit of help. I need a little bit of mentoring. And some people will say yes because they might have the time to help you, and some people will say no because they simply don't have the time to help you. Don't forget, it also comes down to how you approach them. If you send them a message saying, "Hey, can you mentor me?" Obviously you're going to no, right?
Yeah, I think this is a topic that we're going to speak a bit later, as I mentioned earlier. So
that mentoring thing is really important, because you're fledgling, you're just starting off as a in your calligraphic practice as a professional, you're doing work for clients, you don't really know the ins and outs of issues with clients. And the worst thing of when you're working on a job is you say yes to the job because you need the money, but you really have no idea how to do that job. So you can't be charging the client on the job training. So if you've never addressed envelopes, and let's say you charge an hourly rate, you can't charge the client for 4 hours work when this job would really only take an hour and a half, because you don't really understand how to rule up the envelope, how to set it up, how to align the text. That's your problem. That's not the client's problem. And it's not the client's responsibility to pay for that, because you should know that before you do the work for the client. Now, conversely, the client might bring a piece of perspex for you and say, oh, I want to get a monogram on this perspex and some text. Now, that's not a standard thing. It's a little bit more standard today than it was 20 years ago. But if you don't know how to rule up, if you know how to rule up an envelope, you're fine. But if you don't know how to work on perspex, what tools and materials to get, how to erase the lines. If I'm erasing the lines and I end up scratching the work, obviously you can't charge the client for that because that's your own fault. So there are aspects of the work where you can get away with charging the client a half rate for learning on the job, but there are aspects of the work that you cannot charge the client for learning on their job because you don't know how to do that work. So be really, really conscious about this, because some clients ask for a detailed breakdown on why the job is so expensive and how you cost the job out. Collaboration. One of the good things about today's world of calligraphy is you have a lot of calligraphers around, so you can collaborate with them on projects. Some calligraphers prefer not to do envelope addressing, but they prefer to do invitation design. So you might be able to contact calligraphers who like designing stationery but not addressing envelopes, and saying, oh, listen, I'm happy to address the envelopes for you. Can you work with me on this? Or you might have a big job that you can't deal with on your own. So if it is a big job that you can't deal with on your own and you want to get 2 or 3 other calligraphers in your area to help you, you obviously all need to settle on a script, work out the parameters of the script. You might need to tell the client you're splitting the job into 3 because they want it done in a shorter space of time. So there's a lot of information that you need around collaborating with others. You need to make sure you get along with them, you work in the same way, you don't really want to start fighting in the middle of a job, otherwise the job won't get done. And you know what? It doesn't matter if you're angry with the person you're working with. That is not really the client's responsibility, and they don't really care that you're having an argument with somebody that you agreed to share the job with. They just want their work. So, there's a lot more to this business thing. Right, self-study. Lots of calligraphers who take their hobby and turn it into work never find the time to practice anymore. But because you're so busy working that you don't find the time to sit down and actually put the practice in on the work. So there are a number of ways around this. 1, if you are dedicated enough to your business and to your self-development, and you're rigid enough with the way you work, you can say, okay, so my working week is 8 hours a day, that's 40 hours a week, and in that week, I'm going to work for 32 hours. And the other 8 hours, I'm going to spend learning about my craft. I'm going to spend those 8 hours practicing. Now, you might want to do 2 hours a day as that practice, or you might want to take a whole day off out of your week and do that skills learning practice. I was really, really busy, and I'm very conscious of, I have a real drive to want to learn, to want to improve. And so...
You?
Yes, all the time.
How can you improve? You can't improve.
Oh, there's always room for improvement.
Not for you.
And so I thought, okay, well, I have 2,000 envelopes to address this week. How do I actually address these envelopes and use the work to help me practice? So I had this very rigid system of how I work. So I know that I can write 20 copperplate script envelopes of 3 to 4 lines in an hour. So that's pretty fast. Now I write really quickly. I have really great accuracy at that speed. I also know that I can write 30 formal italic envelopes in an hour. So I thought, okay, if I can do 30 formal italic envelopes in an hour, why don't I do 25 in an hour and spend the time it would take to do the other 5 envelopes as part of my practice? So this is how I did it. I would be addressing an envelope, and if I see a letter combination that I struggled with, I always had a sheet of paper on the side of my practice. If there was a letter combination that I struggled with, I would go to after I wrote the word, not in the middle of the word, I would go to the piece of paper and I would write the letter combination. Or if there was a letter combination that I did, or a little mark that I did that I found really, really interesting, I would make a note of it. So I was using the sheer force of the practice, all that writing, that constant writing, to help me gain a better understanding of how the letters work when you're writing them together. So I found a way to make my work part of my practice.
Okay.
And that really helped me to improve my accuracy. I would look at the envelope I just finished addressing and go, why is there a problem there? And the thing about living in London, when I lived in London, when I was at my height of envelope addressing, I could quite easily do 20,000 envelopes in a month. But that's it. I was just addressing envelopes. And when I started, that was the mainstay of your bread and butter income, just envelope addressing. So I would look at the envelopes, and my envelopes came from, if I dealt with really wealthy clients, they would have a massive list that covered the planet. So you'd be writing in Cyrillic, or, obviously you're writing the Latin transliteration of Cyrillic or of Greek. So, they'd write out the word in English, but it would be the Greek word. So I was coming across letter form combinations that I would never come across in English. You write out Polish. You're writing Polish and you're like, how do I get these letters to work together? So that really helped me to understand that the letters will work together in any translation situation. You just have to understand how to do that. If you have CZX together, how do you write those and make them look cohesive?
I don't know.
So it's that kind of understanding of the practice. What's the spacing like? Why are there problems between connecting these letters? Can you actually connect a C to a Z? Or maybe they are separate letters that you just put close to each other. Little things like that. And so over the years, I ended up with this massive list of what I needed to focus on. So I was able to use my work, the envelope addressing work, as practice. It meant that I wasn't doing as many envelopes as I could do in an hour.
That was I was about to say, because you're saying like, oh, I'm looking at my envelopes, I can see mistakes. If you're doing this, you're not doing your the full potential of what you can do. So working and practicing is like you're kind of sacrificing your work, or not?
You're sacrificing the money, the full job, because the job's going to take a little bit longer.
Okay.
But what do you benefit from in the end?
Yeah, you improve, of course.
The next job will be faster because you'll be better.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So, you really have to balance this, because if you're just writing and you're not improving, you're not getting better. If you're not getting better, you're not able to work faster. If you're not able to work faster, then you're still stuck at the same amount of money that you were making 5 years ago because you've not improved.
Then just give up on calligraphy, or give up on making money with calligraphy.
Or just leave it as a hobby.
Yeah, I mean, well, you have more to say because we're out of time.
A few more things. Holiday pay.
Holiday pay. No holiday pay.
You are self-employed. Yeah. When you go on holiday, you're not getting paid, right? You're actually using money that you've made.
Yes.
So you need to be a little bit more conscious about how you approach this. If you make X amount of money in a month and you're going on a holiday in the following month, you need to make sure that you've made enough money to cover your holiday rather than just eating into what you've already earned. And setting this out into your structure of your business is really important. Because when you're working, you get paid for holiday, you get paid for some sick days. That doesn't happen when you're doing your own, when you're self-employed and you are your own boss.
Yes, you kind of does. Like, I mean, if you have company, like I have a company, so like I'm kind
For
of,
yourself holiday pay?
well, I can do if I want. I mean,
But do you?
well, no.
Do you pay yourself sick pay?
No, of course not. But
Do you have an allocated number of days in the year for sick pay and holiday pay that you can claim back from yourself next year?
wait, it's funny because I never thought about this. I mean, I also never needed it, but okay, I'll see in the next year if I'll take money for holiday from myself.
Let's look at you as a case in point. Do you work 40 hours a week?
I'd work almost most of my time that I'm awake.
So how much time a week do you work?
Well, usually I'm awake at least, it's at least like 16 to 18 hours, from which 12 to 14 are work, so
Okay, so you work 12 hours a day.
approx.
So do you work on weekends?
Every day.
So you don't work a Monday to Friday job, you work a Sunday to Sunday job.
I work every day job.
And your Sundays to Sunday job is 12 hours a day.
Approx, sometimes more.
Okay, so
Depends.
that's more than 2.5 times the same amount of hours that somebody working every day will work. Some people only work 6 hours a day.
Well,
So if you are working that hard, how much stress are you putting yourself under? How much time do you take off to relieve that stress? You have to balance all of this off. And if you are working this long, you need the time off so that you need the downtime so you don't get burnout. Because if you burn out, you then can't do the work, right?
well, you can, but you end up like me, which is not a good place to end up.
You and I talk often enough to know that I'm really sort of having a go at you here. But the thing is, if you take your hobby and you turn it into a business and you don't factor the stress it causes, because you don't have another hobby, right? You don't factor the stress it causes and the fact that you need time to regenerate, to recuperate, to maybe go and learn something different, and to help to reinvigorate your love for your hobby, which is now your business. You're going to get diminishing returns. Eventually, instead of making the same amount of money for that time, you're going to be making less because you're not as invested in the job, because you're sort of frustrated with it. You have to build these kinds of times into it. Otherwise, you just stress yourself out. I wanted to talk about pricing.
Pricing, yeah. Okay, let's just finish this. Like, guys, anyways, I mean, as you know, until now, this whole podcast has been kind of chaotic. So there will be like one or two more episodes which are gonna be not so planned, not so structured. But as I spoke before we started the podcast with Paul, after this podcast recording, we'll make a plan for the next 2-3 months, and everything will be much better structured and released and stuff like this. But yeah, let's just finish this topic. We'll speak we'll speak a bit about scripts and about people which annoy us and people which are annoying in general.
All right, so pricing. I think, this is probably one of the most least understood aspects of turning your hobby into a job.
I think also not many people speak about it, because of course you can make money out of many things, but About calligraphy and lettering, how to price. I mean, I haven't heard anybody talking about this or writing about it.
I'll tell you how I priced my work, and then I will explain a little bit more about why things are slightly different today and why my situation might be a little bit more unique than most other people.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Reading to study letterform history. I went to Reigate to study calligraphy and gilding and heraldic painting. And then I went to Birkbeck to study English paleography and Arabic calligraphy and archaeological illustration. That was my focus of study. So when I finished my studies, my aim was to work as a calligrapher, full stop. It wasn't to work in an advertising agency and do calligraphy on the side. So this was my job. So I worked out, I thought, right, so how much money do I need to make a month? Because I've just left school, I've just left university, I have a little bit of savings, and I'm not doing this as a side hustle. This is a full-time job. So I worked out how much money I needed to make a month. And from that, I worked out how much money did I need to make a week in order to make that monthly earning. So I worked this out on a 40-hour week. And from there, I sat down and I thought, right, so how many envelopes can I address in an hour? Once I worked out the number of scripts I could offer, so I offered 32 scripts to my clients. So, I knew, because I worked really hard at Reigate. I graduated with a distinction. I also graduated with a distinction in English paleography. So I had a really good grounding in the history of calligraphic scripts. So from there, I was able to write up 32 variants of scripts that could work for wedding stationery, event stationery. Because again, remember, the bulk of my work was addressing envelopes.
Mm.
So I then looked at the most complex script I had, which was a flourished copperplate script. And I wrote out 10 envelopes. So I had a sample sheet of addresses. And of course, this is the other thing you need to learn to do, when in your terms and conditions, you have to tell your clients, this is how you need to send me the list. So 25 years ago, clients would send you the list, a handwritten list, and go, oh, here you go. And I'm like, I'm not writing your envelopes from your bad handwriting and making mistakes. Are you crazy? You need to type this list up. They'd be like, I can't type this up. I don't use a computer. I'm like, find somebody to do it.
Oh
So, 25 years ago, things are very different. Now, you get a list. So what I did was I created two documents. One was a Word document and one was an Excel document. In the Excel document, it had first name, salutation, first name, surname, ampersand, guest. And in the guest column, you could put either an guest or the name of the guest. Then you had address 1, address 2, address 3, country, postcode, city, country. Because if you have all of this in this information, clients would say to me, I have to break everything up. I'm saying, yes, it's per line. Every line needs to have its own cell. Or you can do it in a Word document. You could put Mr. Paul Antonio, Studio 25, ASC,
Blah, blah, blah.
46, Stockwell Road, London, SW9, and then England. So you could type that up exactly how you want it to appear on the envelope. If you do it in an Excel document, you then merge the document and you merge it into the format. So I liked to have 10 addresses on an A4 sheet. So 2 columns of 5. And at the beginning of every job, I would write the date and the time I started the job, that page.
Mm-hmm.
So over the course of a year, I was able to work out how long it would take me to do 10 in an hour, how many envelopes I could address in copperplate script or in italic or quick script or Spencerian. So I had a really detailed account of how long each script would take me to do. And from that, I was able to work out, based on how much money I needed for the month, how much time I needed to work for the week, and how much money that 1 hour should cost based on the script. So now this is just envelope addressing. So that really helped me to work out, I could say to a client, your job would cost this much because I know how long the job would take. One of the other things that I tried was lots of calligraphers with I spoke to calligraphers in the US. A lot of calligraphers charge per line, or they charge per job. So, if they know the job is going to take 2 hours, they'll charge the client for 2 hours work.
Mm-hmm.
I found this quite difficult to manage because my jobs were very variable. So if I was addressing an envelope for a client who was sending invitations to India, an Indian address is like this long, but a London address could be this long.
Yeah.
So I couldn't charge per envelope. And a London address, the lines could be this long, and the Indian address, the lines could be like this long, the full width of the envelope. So you don't really want to charge per line there either. And then I was...
But why not? I mean, you're writing so much more anyway.
There's a better way to do it.
Okay.
So if they're sending you the job as a Word document or an Excel document, you have to merge the Excel document so that you can see what the lines are. Don't forget, once you've merged it, send it back to the client and make sure they okay it. And then when it's in Word, Word tells you how many words you're writing. So I thought, hang on a second. If I know how many words I'm writing and I know the script I'm writing, and I charge per word, so copperplate script is 55 pence a word, italic is 35 pence a word, and I multiply the script by the number of words, I know exactly what the cost is. So then you'd have clients saying, "Oh, that's really expensive." I'm like, "Yeah, but you put Clapham High Street, Clapham, London. You don't need to put Clapham. Take Clapham out. That's one less word to write. And if you have 100 Claphams in your addresses, because you only need to put Clapham High Street, London, SW4. You don't need to put Clapham. But some people like to put, additionally, like to put Knightsbridge because it looks really good, right? Okay, well, pay for it. Yeah. You want me to write more, you pay more.
Of course.
Simple as that. So I was able to work out, based on this pricing structure, how to very quickly find out the exact cost the job would cost the client. And that made a lot of sense. So, I had a lot of pushback from clients saying, well, this person charges per line and this person charges per envelope. And I'm like, I don't care. This is how I charge. There's a reason behind it. Also, if you want a cheaper envelope, you could take a couple words out, Okay, so.
Or you can go to someone who doesn't write as beautiful.
Eventually it sort of got, okay, you know what? I've spent 10 minutes on the phone arguing with you about my pricing. If you don't want it, go somewhere else, because I'm not going to spend the time with you on the phone anymore. Have a nice day. Bye. And if they come back, they come back. If they don't come back, you know what? You don't have the stress of it. But, when you're starting off, you need the work, it's a little bit more difficult. But having that kind of information set out before you deal with the client is really important. When a client says to you, how much does this cost? And you're like, I'll have to get back to you on it. Okay. Immediately, the client has the upper hand. So that's how I worked out my pricing. Then things started to change. People started to ask me things like, can you design a wedding invitation? Well, how long does it take to design a wedding invitation?
What's going on there?
Oh, they're drilling next door. How much time do you have to spend? Is there drawing in it? So I sort of started, I had to then talk to friends who are designers and say, how do you charge? And they said, well, if I'm just laying text, this is how much I charge. If I'm adding design, if I have to design it, because a wedding invitation is just sent to text, right? If you have to design it by adding different elements, then you have the text plus the design. And if you're drawing a map, well, you have to draw the map, first of all. Well, actually, first of all, you have to come up with the design for the map, get it okayed by the client, the sketch, and then do the drawing, then do the scanning, then put it together. So they're separate stages that you have to work through, and each stage costs money. So I had to start to understand how to price my work that was not just straightforward writing, like a poem. If you have a poem to write out, is it just text? Or does the client want a larger initial, not necessarily illuminated, they just want it bigger? Do they want it bigger for every paragraph? Do they want some flourishing? Do they want some decoration? Oh, can you do this little drawing? Or they come back and they say, oh, can you put some gold on it? And you're like, what? If I'm using gold, I can only use this paper because it has to be thicker, which means the paper is more expensive. Can you get access to the paper? Can you go to the shop? If you have to go to the shop to get the paper, you have to charge the client for your time going to the shop to get the paper because that's no paper that you have. So all of this stuff starts to factor into the pricing, and the pricing sort of becomes, it can sometimes become a little overwhelming. So, finding a good strategy for yourself is really important. And so that's where mentorship is really useful. If you are aligned with other calligraphers, you can call them up and say, I'm really struggling with this pricing. Do you think you could help me out? And they'd be like, yeah, what's the problem? Oh, no, don't do it like that. Do it like this. So, don't think that you need to be an island on your own out there, just doing your work by yourself and trying to figure everything out. As I say to my students, when it comes to learning calligraphic scripts, I've done the research. I've done the academic research. I've come up with a new system to teach, a new system to approach the script. I've reinvented the wheel, so I can give you the wheel, and all you need to do is learn to paint the wheel, make it decorative. What's the point in you reinventing the wheel when there's so many of us who have wheels? We can help. Just ask nicely. All right, so that's my sort of. I think I'm at the end of the, turning your hobby into profession, and I hope that's really sort of given you something to think about.
Yeah, there more to talk about it, or?
Oh gosh, there's always more to talk about when it comes to setting up a business and how the business works, and there's also a mental side to it.
Well, I think we have 10-15 more minutes more, so I think let's dedicate the whole episode about this, and
let's talk about your mental state, because this is something a lot of people do not talk about.
Yeah, my mental state is it's not good.
PG-13.
What's this?
G-rated, not X-rated. When you leave, okay, so if you get to the point where you have turned your hobby into your business, and you had a job, you're busy enough, and you're now doing this full time, there's a whole other level of mental stress and tension that you have to cope with, because every month you need to find money. This can put you in a state of depression. It can put you into a state of self-doubt. You don't sleep because all you're thinking about is, how do I find the work? Where do I find the next job? Is the money going to come in? Is that client going to pay on time? So that's why your terms and conditions are really important. Get 50% up front before you start the job, which is a non-refundable deposit.
This, I think we have to speak a bit more about this, because there are so many people which they've been burnt. I mean, I guess.
I'm speaking from experience here.
Yeah.
I thought that you do the work and people would pay you, right? I was young and stupid and just naive. And what happened was, I was in a situation where I'd done this big job for a client, and the client kept saying, oh yeah, the check's in the post, and my bills were coming and the check never arrived. It was actually for a big fashion house.
Okay.
And I I was really up at the end of it. So I went to one of their big stores but in Knightsbridge. When I walked into the store, I started screaming, "Where's my money?" Because I had been writing to them for 4 months. I had done £6,000 worth of work. It took a lot of time. I couldn't take on other work while I was doing this job, so I actually lost work. And then I had to keep chasing them, and they refused to pay. So I said I was going to take some goods off the shelf and go and sell it, and I would get my money back that way. And the security guard came. I said, "If you touch me, I'll break your arm." And the manager came down. He says, "Can you keep your voice down?" I was like, "I'll not keep my voice down. Look at this dress. It's £20,000, and you owe me £6,000, and you can't pay it." And I really lost it, because I was at the point where I actually had no money. I couldn't afford to buy food. I was 2 months late with my rent. If my phone got cut, I couldn't get work. So why am I in this position? I've done the work. You love the work. You've used the work. You've had the event, and I'm not getting paid. So the accountant comes down and he says, "Listen, I'll cut a check for you." I said, No, you will not cut a check for me. There's a bank next door. You'll go next door and you'll give me my money right now. He said, "Can you keep your voice down?" I was like, "No, I will not keep my voice down." And the really rich people in the store going, "What's going on here?" And I said, "I want my money." And so they were like, "What's going on?" So the manager had to go. So, it created enough of a scene for the financial advisor to call them, give the accountant the permission to go to the bank next door and actually get a certified check, which I could cash in and get my money.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as he gave me the money, I stayed in the bank and I paid my phone bill, I paid my rent, and I went to the supermarket and I bought some food for the house. I should never have had to been in that position to understand that the client really doesn't care about you. All they care about is their job. You have to protect yourself. So the first thing you need is terms and conditions. And those terms and conditions have to stipulate a 50% or a 30% non-refundable deposit, because you've already spent hours on the phone with the client. Who's paying for that phone call? You've sent tons of emails. Who's paying for that electricity? Who is paying for, your Outlook subscription? So that money, you've already spent that money. You need 30% upfront, non-refundable. Then you need to get, another third of it once the job commences. And you need a contingency, because the job will always go over. The client, "Oh, I need 20 envelopes more." Like, you need 20 envelopes more? I only bought 100 envelopes. You invited 90 people? Yeah. Do you not have like 20 more envelopes? No, but I need 10% spares. So you don't need just 20 envelopes. If the job is 100 people, you need 120 envelopes for you. And problems, because sometimes ink will not take on paper.
We can do a mistake.
And my mistake margin was 3%, which is brilliant. But in that 3%, it would also be problems like the nib catching the paper and splattering ink. I have no control over that. That's just me going, "Oh, maybe I've used the nib for too long. I need to change the nib." Then you have to sort of get the nib working again. So all of that's time, right? But that's time that you, as a just starting off, you don't even think that you have to factor that time in. Do you have enough nibs? Oh, I need to go into town to get the nibs. Okay, so that's like 2 hours out of your day, right? Don't get into that position. Get to the point where you have your upfront money, you have your third when the job starts, and before the job is given to the client, you get paid. Because if you don't get paid and you have to end up chasing the client for the money, you're not actually making money, because you're spending more time chasing that money. So you need to get that money before the client gets the job.
Yeah, and this is done with a contract which you make in you have to sign before everything is started. Like, keep this in mind because it's super important.
You really, I am talking to you from personal experience. Do not trust that the client is going to look after you. All they care about is getting their job. Whatever happens after that, they don't really care.
Also, I think it's super important if you turn your hobby into a profession. In our case, calligraphy, you have to learn to stop do things for free. Like, you're my friend, can you write this for me? Like, you have to understand friends and business are very different things.
Always charge them.
Doesn't
Discounted rate.
It doesn't matter who it is. Like, if you turn it into profession, doesn't matter if they're sad or angry with you. I mean, this is the way you start making your money, and you have to treat it like this. No friends, no whatever it is, everybody has to pay. If they don't want to pay, you don't work it. It's simple as that.
You might have a special friends rate, but you have to explain to them you're only getting this rate because you're a friend. Don't call me up and pester me saying, oh, this E doesn't look like this. And you're like, I give you a discount and you're complaining. So, you need to set some really rigid boundaries here. Otherwise, you'll end up arguing with your friends and that's no problem.
Yeah, most of the times I don't do friend work. And a lot of them, they were, but I was like, I don't care. Like, Like, if you're with me.
You can't say that. Yes!
Come on! Man, this English, there's everything, you cannot say this, what can I say? Is there a list of words which I know not to use?
I'll send you a list of words not to use.
Oh my freaking God.
Okay, so that's, contracts are something that you really need to work out.
Mm-hmm.
But I really want to talk about your mental state.
Yeah.
When you give up your hobby, you're taking away the thing that brings you pleasure. When you turn that hobby into work, unless you found another hobby, and the problem with calligraphy is you love it so much. This is why I always say to people, oh, you think you found calligraphy? Calligraphy called to you. If it didn't call to you, you wouldn't be this obsessive about it. You are so obsessive about it. And so when you turn it into a hobby, you still have the mindset that it's sort of like a hobby, right? So you don't mind putting in all the work.
Mm.
So you're not gaining the benefit, the mental benefit, which is to relax you. You're actually getting more stressed. Now, if you've decided to give up your day job, do this full time, some of the problems are stress, because you don't have a stress release hobby anymore, because you're using it for work. Depression, because you're so frustrated doing the work and not gaining the health benefit that you used to get. You don't really know what's going on. You just know that you're doing your hobby, you're doing this work that you love, but you're depressed because you're stressed and you don't understand where the depression is coming from. You have to figure out where to find work every month. You then have to find the time to do the work. You have to find the time to do all the admin. You have to chase the clients for the payment. And in some instances, you send something to the client and you say, oh, I need an answer. And they're like, oh, I'll get back to you. They want the job on Friday. It's Monday. Wednesday, you're still chasing them. I need an answer. Yeah. But they still want it on Friday. That creates stress in your life.
I remember something to say about when you make a contract. You have, before starting the job, you have to write, for example, I can make 3 or 5 changes. That's it. Because if you haven't worked with clients, clients come back and they'll be like, oh, can you change this? Or I don't like this, or blah, blah, blah. And that's fine. But you have to tell them in this contract how many changes are allowed to be made for free. Each change after this has to be additional paid. And keep this in mind.
In my monograms, if a client says, oh, I want some monograms, I will give you 8 monograms for £250. That's it. There are no changes allowed. So you have 8 to choose from. If you want changes, it's £500, and you can choose to blend 2 monograms, and you'll get a pencil sketch of both of them. and then we have one final. That's it. If you then come back and go, oh, can I have this and can I have that? Because we know which monogram it is. If you're working on that monogram, it's £75 every change you add. And if you want a monogram, you get 8, you get it in 4 working days, end of story. If you want to start calling me and saying, oh, can we, if you go for the higher price, the duration of the job is dependent on you. I will send you back something 4 days after I received an answer from you. That's really important, because the client will be like, oh, I've been busy, I didn't see your thing. I sent you what you asked for 12 days ago and you've just gotten back to me. Oh, can we still get it for Friday? No, we cannot still get it for Friday. Why? Can you read? Let me send you back what you signed yes to. And so you have to be really blunt with them. Or you say, yeah, I can do it for Friday. I have a fixed fee, which is X. I have a half-time fee, which is Y. And I have a double fee, which is Z. So if you want it for Friday, you need to pay £250 more because it's in less time and I don't have the time to fit this in. I have to stay back late to get this done. What's it going to be? Oh, okay, well, Tuesday's fine. Okay, brilliant. Have a nice day. And don't get hung up on it because, oh, I should have helped the client. The client's not helping you. They're helping make you stressed. Yes, that's the help. And if they're going to, I always say to clients as well, you want to stress me out? Okay, I'll stress your wallet out. And, because you have to, at the end of the day, you are the one sitting there on your own, so stressed. And the clients made tons of money, they're out drinking with their friends, and you're at home trying to get their job done, and you're stressed, and you're not benefiting from this. So your mental health is really important, And then there's one of the problems that calligraphy does is this. When you're doing it for work, you start to hear voices. So the voices come from you arguing with yourself over a job. Oh, should I do this? Should I help the client with this? Oh, I have this to do. I have that to do. And you built in this inner voice to question things, so much so that when you go to sleep, it's still talking. And you can't get to sleep because, oh, you need to get up and do this. Oh, don't forget to try this. Oh gosh, maybe you shouldn't be going to sleep. And so you don't get enough sleep. So you're not sleeping, you're stressed. You fall into depression because you're not getting the work done. And then the worst thing happens, you start to doubt yourself. Oh, maybe I'm not good enough at this. Maybe I shouldn't have turned my hobby into this. Oh, I shouldn't have left my job. And so the whole thing turns into this evil cycle. And eventually you burn out. Because it's not just the client having a go at you, it's also you having a go at yourself. And you're not finding the time to use your calligraphy as a hobby, but only using it as work. So you get to the point where you're just, I've had enough of this.
And this is even more stressful if the client is some big client, because some brand can contact you and then the stress is even bigger because you cannot mess up with, let's say Coca-Cola is your client. I'm pretty sure you won't be willing to make some mistakes. I'm trying not to say bad words. Also something else I wanted to say.
And also, be honest with yourself. Just because it's a big job, can you actually do this job?
Yeah.
Because if you can't do the job, you're going to stress yourself out because you'll try to do the job and it won't be working and you're getting stressed and the deadline's approaching. And then you give it to the client and the client loses it because you've wasted their time, you haven't done the job that they wanted. So not only are you stressed, you also don't get paid and you make a bad name for yourself.
No.
So just because it's a big job that's come in doesn't mean you can do it. I mean, there have been instances where people have called me saying, "Oh, I want you to write a book," and I'm like, "Okay." If anybody says I want you to write a book, I'm always like, "Okay, hang on a second. When do you want this book for?" "Oh, well, can we have can we have a call?" I'm like, "No, I'm not wasting my time on a call with you. I want to know when you want this book for. We want to release it in the next 3 months." I'm like, "Have a nice day." Because I have other work on. I have other things to do, and a book project is a big project. Clients come to me sometimes with a photo album. I did this photo album for Prince Philip's 90th birthday because he's been in sport all his life. So this company was, this charity was doing something for his 90th birthday. They brought like 400 photographs, and the year was on the back. I had to get the right album, put these photographs in chronological order, and write underneath each one of them what it was, and the year, and how old he was. This was a massive task. They had no idea for the layout of the album. They turned up with the photographs, and they just gave it to me and gave me a list of all the photographs, what they were, and what I needed to write. And I had to figure this out. And on the phone, I said to them, I can't cost this job because I really don't know what you want me to do. And they said, "Oh, we have some photographs to put into an album." They didn't say they didn't have the album, and they didn't say it was 400 photographs. That is not some photographs, right? And all the photographs are different sizes. So they have to fit properly on the page, they have to balance nicely, and they need space for text. That is a lot of technical design work. So I was fortunate that I said to the client, this could quite easily cost you £10,000. And they were like, "That's a lot of money." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to take that down until I see what I'm doing." Well, they expected me to find and purchase the album as well. Well, the album alone was £600. So, you don't agree to something. Like, one of the things I learned very early on was I would never say yes to a job until I actually knew what the job was. "Oh, I want some envelopes addressed." Okay. "I like your copperplate script." That's great. It's the most difficult script to write, and it's also the most problematic to write. "What paper are the envelopes?" "Oh, I don't know, the regular paper." Really? Exactly, is regular paper. Call the company making the envelopes and get them to send me the technical spec. So the printer will know who the paper is made by, what the name is, the GSM, whether or not it's coated, whether or not it's textured. By which time I had a huge understanding of paper. So if a client said, "Oh, it's this," I would go, "You can't get copperplate script on this." Why? Because it's textured, and the nib will catch, and it won't work. Whereas before I'd be like, yeah, I could do copperplate script on that. And then the envelopes arrive, and you're like, "How am I going to do this?" And you've already said yes because you didn't know better. So there's all of this stuff, and all of that contributes to your stress levels. You're sitting there, you're looking at the deadline, you're trying to finish the job, you're trying not to make mistakes because you don't really have that many envelopes. Because some clients will go, "Oh, it's 100 guests. Okay, I'm sending you 100 envelopes." You're like, "No, you're not." You send me 100 envelopes, there are 10 people who will not be coming to this event. So, that adds to your stress levels. And, when you're stressed, you can't write accurately. Because you're so stressed that you stand a chance of making more mistakes, and you can't write. You're not relaxed enough to write. So you might need to go for a walk. That's another hour of your day just gone, just trying to calm yourself down so you can do the job. You have to be aware of your mental state when you're doing this. And not just your mental state, because your mental state will affect those people around you. If you have a family and you are stressed all the time because you have work to do and you're not getting to the work, you are going to take it out on them. And You might not think you're going to take it out on them consciously, but subconsciously you will take it out on them. So it starts to affect your interpersonal relationships. So you have to be really conscious of what's happening. If you choose to do this, take your hobby and turn it into profession, it's not magic. It doesn't just, it's not all honey and roses. There's actually a lot of thorns in there.
Well, that's it for today's episode, guys. No more topics. Like, we recorded the whole episode about this topic. We spoke in the last 2 episodes about it. Hopefully it helped you a lot. I think Paul gave quite a lot of good information, which I'm sure will save a lot of time and a lot of stress to many of you. If you have any other suggestions or things that you think we didn't tell to people but still might be useful, drop them in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening on Spotify or anywhere else, you can just send a DM on Nibs Podcast on Instagram. Follow Paul Antonio on Instagram at PAScribe, me at Millenist. Subscribe, follow everything, and as always, keep writing
accurately.
Yes. Okay.